Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion on Canada's fiscal state, and joining me again is Franco Terrazzano. Franco, we've seen some other things that to me seem a little tone deaf, some other policies or some new spending increases. One recently that the members of parliament, and I don't know if this is an automated pay increase or what, but they awarded themselves a raise. And that includes ministers, members of parliament, which of course includes the member of parliament, Mr. Prime Minister Trudeau himself. What's going on here? Is this an automatic thing? Is this a cost of living adjustment? Why do they deserve a pay raise?
Well, they don't deserve a pay raise. And we even released polling showing that 80% of Canadians didn't want MPs to get another raise. Now, this happens every April 1. They rubber stamp a pay raise for them, but it doesn't have to happen. They have stopped these pay raises in the past between 2010 and 2013 in response to the 08-09 recession. So they don't need to give themselves a raise every single year, but they decided to do it once again this year. And this year's raise ranged from an extra $8,500 all the way up to an extra $17,000 for Mr. Trudeau. So let me give you their salaries now. A backbench member of parliament, their salary is now $203,000, making them the second highest paid an elected official in the world. Wow. A minister's salary is now just shy of $300,000. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's annual salary is now north of $406,000. Now, there's two more things I want to add. Number one, the MP pay raise happened on the very same day that they hiked carbon taxes. So on the same day that they took money out of Canadians' pockets, they stuffed more money into their own pockets, and that's wrong. The second thing I want to highlight is that this is their fifth pay raise since the beginning of 2020. So over those years, this is their fifth raise since then, and over those years, their constituents struggled with a pandemic, lockdowns, business losses, job losses, inflation, a housing crisis, record lineups at food banks. But each and every single one of those years since the beginning of 2020, they still gave themselves raise after raise after raise after raise after raise.
Now, I know some MPs, they really hustle and they work their bottoms off. And for them, I'm sure they would command that much salary. Some not so much. They just do the bare minimum, and that's what they're afforded. That's the pay that they elected, I suppose, to give themselves. That is what it is. Are there any MPs pushing back and saying, you know what, I'm going to forego this pay raise in vis-a-vis what's happening in Canadian families these days?
Well, it's really unfortunate because we didn't see a single member of parliament try to forcefully stop this pay raise. So we didn't see a single political party or a single member of parliament really try to forcefully stop this raise, right? And that's so unfortunate, just given the struggles of day-to-day Canadians. But I also want to bring this back to a real point of democracy. In a democracy, it's the Canadians, it's the taxpayers who are supposed to be the boss. Well, in the real world, if your boss doesn't think you deserve a raise, you don't get a raise. And Canadians, 80% of Canadians oppose the MP pay raise, but these MPs just rubber stamped and gave themselves another raise anyways, right? But the second thing here is that in this type of democracy, it's called a House of Commons for a reason. Members of Parliament are supposed to represent the ordinary Canadian. And what we're seeing now is our members of parliament becoming financially detached from the realities facing their constituents. And I think part of that explains why you get these bad policies like huge debt and tax hikes that are making lives more expensive for their constituents, while the MPs just give themselves a raise every single year.
Well, and again, you mentioned this raise happened on the day, it was April 1st, 2024, of when the carbon tax adjusted. And we're kind of midway through a series of carbon tax hikes, I believe up until 2030. So this is just going to get worse and worse every year in terms of carbon tax hikes. How much more is this new carbon tax hiking? And again, this is speaking to this tone deafness. And sometimes I wonder, is anybody paying attention?
Well, so now the carbon tax, it costs 17 cents a liter of gasoline, it costs 21 cents per liter of diesel, and it costs 15 cents per cubic meter of natural gas. But as you pointed out, Trudeau plans to keep cranking up the carbon tax every single year until 2030. And they aren't even ruling out carbon tax hikes after that. Okay. So in
Okay.
2030, the carbon tax alone will cost 37 cents per liter of gasoline. But even today, the carbon tax is making a very negative impact on Canadian finances. Okay. So the carbon tax will cost the average Canadian family up to $911 more than they get back in rebates this year.
My
And that is from
goodness.
the parliamentary budget officer. And what's just adding insult to
Okay,
injury
I'm going to
is
pause you there,
that the
actually, Franco, because we got to cut to commercial break. But those numbers are
oh,
definitely very jarring.